Well, as the kids are getting back into the routine of being back in school, for many, it's an exciting time. They're seeing their friends they haven't seen over the summer. There's new schools, lots of excitement, lots of anticipation. A new year is here. But you know, for many students, it's exactly the opposite because of bullying. Now, according to the Canadian Institute of Health Research, 1 in 3 adolescent students in Canada report being bullied recently. And among adult Canadians, 38% of males and 30% of females experienced occasional or frequent bullying during their years in school. So bullying is touching Canadian families right across this country, including my own. And here to talk about that is my youngest daughter, Amelia. Welcome to 100 Huntley Street.
Thank you for having me.
Great to have you here. Of course, being your dad, I watched you growing up. As a young child, you were full of life, carefree. Tell me about those growing up years.
So yeah, I would say up until probably age 11, I was carefree, I was happy, I was friendly to everybody around me, and then junior high started. And that's sort of when the bullying took form, and people weren't as nice as they were when I was younger.
And that I know caught you off guard because, as you mentioned, you were somebody that just had just loved life, a real zeal for life, and it started to change. So what were some of the things that were happening that were affecting you? And I knew you maybe at the time didn't understand it to being bullying, but what was happening?
Well, I would go to school, and of course, coming from a very loving family, everybody was on your side at home. And then you walk into those hallowed halls of junior high, and I remember my very first class sitting down and a boy teasing me for the way my body was. And I was very small, underdeveloped, and that was something that I was targeted for. So I would go to school every day and I would feel like an incomplete person, and I would look at other girls and I'd be envious of them and wanting to look like them because I was made to feel like I was defective. So years of that just affected my self-esteem in such a negative way, and I didn't view it as bullying at the time, but looking back, that's exactly what was happening, and I felt like a target.
So you're in elementary school, so there's a little more safety. You go into grade 7, which here in Alberta, at least where we are, is grade 7. So you go in there, it's junior high school, and again, you're feeling like you didn't belong, or how are you processing?
Yeah, that's how I felt. I would walk in and I would feel like I was an outsider, and that everybody had their, I guess you'd call them cliques, and they had their friends, and I didn't feel like I fit anywhere. I had a couple of friends, but it just wasn't, I just didn't feel like I belonged in that environment. And then grade 8 occurred and I didn't have any friends. When you're young and you're a girl, I mean, I'm sure this happens to boys as well, but being a young woman, girls aren't exactly the friendliest at that age. So one day I came to school and the friends that I had just weren't my friends anymore. So I'd spend lunch times alone and trying to find people to sit with, to just spend time with, and I just never felt like I had connection with people, and I was very lonely.
So where does it cross the line from, just some of the insecurity, kids are maybe ignoring each other, to cross over where it's now bullying and you're being targeted?
So I think that everybody fights when they're young. I mean, everybody has conflict in their life. So if you're having adversity with a friend, it's not necessarily bullying. But I think when it transitions into being a target, then that's when it's bullying. So when you haven't done anything wrong and people just target you for something that you have no control over, or they just make a decision that they don't want to be your friend or they don't like something about you, I think that's when it transitions and those lines get blurred.
And talk about, because this is something I didn't have to experience and people of my generation, is the social media.
Oh, yes.
Because at least, and I've heard, we've talked to people that have been, bullying, at least they could say at the end of the day, they could turn things off from a previous generation. That's not the case anymore.
No, so we had this site called Nexopia. It was popular when I was 13, 14. I actually got cyberbullied for probably about a year. So I would get bullied when I was in junior high.
So what kind of things were happening?
Online?
Yeah.
So what Nexopia is, it's kind of like Facebook, but a little bit different, like the generation before that. You would just post photos, statuses, same kind of concept as Facebook. What was happening to me was somebody hacked into my account. To this day, I'm still unsure about who that person is. Doesn't matter. But somebody hacked into my account and would send really nasty messages to other people and say that it was me. They would post just terrible comments on behalf of me. They would, somebody created a fake account and just basically terrorized me online, and it wasn't something I could escape. When I left school, it followed me home, just with the nasty messages, and yeah, feeling like you can't escape that.
And you try to tell people, no, that wasn't me, but they would ignore it?
Yeah, so what I had to do is I went to school the next day or the days after it happened, and I would try to defend myself, but in true junior high fashion, people weren't willing to believe me. So I tried to do a number of things, like post personal photos on my account that would only come from me to prove that it was me, and that these nasty messages weren't coming from me. Just tried to go to school and defend myself as best I can. I was fortunate that most people did end up believing me, but it was really hard because people would think the worst of you.
And you had to go through a time where you didn't have a lot of friends.
Yes, very lonely.
Now, according to an organization that's called Bullying Canada, the longer a child is bullied, the more they're likely to develop physical, emotional, and psychological scars that can last a lifetime. Bullying, as we know, can be devastating and even can lead to suicide. So, Amelia, how can we, as parents, be aware? I know your mother and I were aware that some things were going on, but we did not understand the extent of it. So, as parents, what can we do to better recognize when our child is being bullied?
So I think that's a hard thing because a lot of people don't want to come to you. When I was 14 years old, I wanted you guys to think I was popular. I wanted you guys to think that I had this great social standing. So maybe what a parent could do, because asking your child probably isn't going to work. Obviously, that's step one. Maybe just paying attention to body language, and are they disengaged at home? Are they talking to you less? Maybe monitor their phone to see if that cyberbullying is happening. Take it away at night. Just check in with your kids, pray for your kids. I think that's the most powerful tool you can do, because if they're not going to talk to you about it, then prayer is going to be the only covering that they have.
Talk to me about your spiritual situation, and as a follower of Jesus, did that help you somewhat get through the bullying?
So now I would say absolutely. At the time, I always had faith. I always believed in God, but I don't think that I really had that connection when I was going through that, because I was so young, and I would question God as to, why did you make me look like this if people are going to bully me? It didn't make sense to me. But now as an adult, I look back, and having faith has helped heal me through that process, because I've been able to ask God and challenge him and question that, and he's given me answers, and he shows me that no matter what other people say or what other people are valuing me as, that I'm good enough in his eyes, and that he thinks I'm beautiful. So that's been healing for me in my adult years.
So you've taken something negative like bullying, and I know it's a process, and you're currently working on your master's degree in psychology. You want to counsel, and I know you're going to be counseling a lot of young people, probably especially young women that are dealing with the bullying issue. But out of your pain, you have written a book.
Yes.
It's called All of Me, and it's a book of poetry. Tell me how that all came about.
So my book of poetry started probably 4 years ago. When I was about 20 years old, I would say I had a quarter life crisis, and I wasn't feeling good enough. I didn't really have confidence or value. So what I started to do was, obviously I was praying and reaching out to people, but I took my pain and I started to write about it. So I would take the sadness I was experiencing or the anxiety, and I would put that on a piece of paper, and to me that poetry validated how I was feeling. And then when I shared it with the internet and other people were recognizing and connecting with it, that was part of the healing too, because they were connecting with it in a way that they didn't feel alone, and that helped process my pain as well.
What kind of poems are in there, Amelia?
So there's all different kinds of poems. So it starts off with a section called Surviving. That's kind of looking at just going through that hard time. The second chapter is Grieving, and that's recognizing what has been lost. And Walking is the third and final chapter, and that's kind of how you regain who you were before all of this happened and trying to learn to live differently. You walk with a limp after pain, but it doesn't mean that you can't walk. So it starts off as a lot of things with self-esteem issues and not feeling good enough, and it's my journey through all of those emotions, deep sadness, anxiety, and arriving at a place of being able to feel joy and happiness again. there's no finish line to pain, but there's certainly ways that you can process it. And now I feel like I can arrive at that state of happiness or joy much easier than I did.
I know that myself and Cheryl and Maggie often talk on the program about the importance of counseling.
Yes.
We've all said, hey, we need counseling. You yourself went through counseling. How did that help you?
Immensely. So when I was 22, I reached out to a counselor, and it was great because him and I connected very quickly, very well. And he really helped me recognize my own limitations, putting too much pressure on myself, helped me work through my anxiety, feeling socially anxious and like nobody wanted to be with me or nobody liked me. He helped uncover a lot of those truths that I was not believing about myself, and just help me process my pain and give me a voice to my pain.
Okay, the book is called All of Me. Where can people get this great, awesome, amazing 10 out of 10 book? I'm a little biased.
A little biased. You can find it on Amazon worldwide, and you can find it on Barnes & Nobles as well if you're in the United States.
It's a great book. By the way, the cover here was from your mom.
Yeah, she painted it.
She painted it, yeah, and there's illustrations in there as well.
Yeah.
And again, it's an important book because it's a part of your journey, and I know you want to bring healing and hope to other people. So thank you, Amelia.
Thank you for having me.
And if you're dealing with a situation, maybe you're being bullied, maybe your child's being bullied, maybe your child is a bully. Well, Amelia mentioned it earlier, the importance of prayer. That's why we have our prayer lines available, somebody to encourage you, to pray with you. And if you need further help, we can put you in the right direction. There are professional people that we work with. Our number is 1-866-273-4444. Again, we want to be a program that brings hope and healing to people. So if you need that today, call our prayer lines. Hey, if you're impacted by the story shared today, hit our subscribe button and stay up to date with our life-changing stories on 100 Huntley Street.